was telling Jack the other night about a new legal scheme that seems to be going on throughout California. It's tenant habitability issues. So they could basically claim my unit's not habitable because of insects, mold, whatever it might be. And then they claim a code violation with the city and they try to settle with the owner. And this is usually common on like larger apartment buildings, like 12, 20 units plus. They settle with the owner because the owner knows they're going to spend 20 to 50 grand defending themselves. So let's settle for 20. Done. Now, the lawyer on that case could send a mailer to every other tenant in that building saying that this owner was found to settle this case. You might be entitled to money. And now every single tenant can now file a claim against that owner.
Yeah.
Potentially bankrupting the owner. And that
we've gotten far too litigious. I think the problem is that these lawyer organizations, they just fund these Democratic politicians. And so the politicians keep laws in place to allow all these lawsuits.
So this is something that Jack actually brought up because he said, who's lobbying for this? And there's a new ordinance that came throughout Los Angeles recently where now you have to put it in a common area of any rent-controlled property that said the tenant is entitled to free legal services. Here's the number, and it needs to be displayed at all times. And if it's not properly displayed and the tenant falls behind on their rent, you can't evict them because that whole eviction case is going to be thrown out because they didn't know that they had an entitlement for those legal services. And Jack said, who comes up with that?
When you go too far in one direction, tenants will abuse the system. And I know that it's like, you're not supposed to say anything negative about tenants. Oh, and here's the other thing too. So LA, in all of its wisdom, just passed a new law saying that renting out this house as an example, I have about $500,000 worth of furniture and art in the house. And so I charge $33,000 a month and I charge a 2-month security deposit. $66,000 on $500,000. City of LA says, no, I can only charge 1 month security deposit. Even if the house is furnished, I cannot charge any more money for a furnished house versus an unfurnished house. That's LA in all their brilliance because they were trying to protect, ostensibly trying to protect someone in like the $1,000, to $2,000 a month price point and they wanted them to be able to afford their security deposit. So now they're limiting people that have $10 million homes from getting a 2-month security deposit from another millionaire. Like it's so illogical. And here's another problem too. I now can't sell that house. Up until a year ago, I could tell the tenant, hey, your lease expires in February. When you move out, I'm going to put the house on the market for sale and I'm going to sell my house. Now I cannot get rid of that tenant. That tenant can now live there forever. Indefinitely. Yeah. You cannot get a tenant out just because you want to sell a property. That's no longer just cause eviction. So
how can you get a tenant out?
You can never get a tenant out in California.
I was telling
you cannot. But what you have to move? I'd have to personally move back into that house
for 2 years.
For 2 years, but I don't want to live in that house. That's the only way to get. Otherwise, that tenant can live there forever. Even though he's paying $30,000 a month, LA thinks that they need to protect that tenant and not allow me to sell my own property because that tenant's lease expired, and yet he's allowed to continue to live in my house and pay $30,000 a month.
You literally can't say, here's a 90-day notice. You can't say.
Nope. In fact, what happens is the tenant will go, oh, you want to sell your house? Give me 200 grand. And then I'll move out. That's what happens because they have all the power now.
I was telling Jack,
so stupid.
If you make too many offers to the tenant, a cash for keys, they could now sue you for harassment.
Yeah, and also now, if you enter into a deal for cash for keys, and you pay a tenant, let's say $20,000, to move out, and he moves out, he can move back in the next month. He can say, "I changed my mind," and move back in. He has to give you your money back. So you can't even actually conduct business. You can't even move along with the understanding that this signed contract is enforceable. The tenant can change their mind.
There should be an exemption for luxury properties.
Of course there should be. If you have...
Well, you should just be able to kick someone out of your own property.
Well, it's just common... That's what I'm saying. They've lost common sense. So as an example, if someone's paying over $10,000 a month in rent, they don't need the city to be managing security deposits. They don't need the city to tell them that they don't have to move out at the end of their lease. I don't know why the city is promulgating codes protecting millionaires. They don't pass these things to purposely harm economic activity. They just aren't smart enough to figure out all the damage they're causing.
It does appear as though that's probably something that's just lobbied by lawyers, because the more regulations, the more loopholes, the more layers of paint that they put on this mound of regulation is just another thing that they can exercise to get more profit, basically. They're just like, oh, this one code, oh, this code. If there's a million codes, they have a million choices to be able to try to,
Well, I think it's
execute on
I think it's
something.
different. I think it's tenants' rights groups, well-intentioned, say, hey, there's a Oh, here's another example that LA did. You can no longer discriminate on tenants based on criminal history. So I don't even think you can even look up criminal history now. I don't think you can.
No,
So
I
if
don't think you
someone
can.
committed like a crime and you find that out, you cannot say, oh, I don't want to lease it to you because you burglarized a house or something like that. No, you have to lease it to them. That doesn't make sense. That's not helping anyone. That's just creating inefficiencies in the market.
What if they committed a crime of fraud?
Let me
Like,
see if there's any.
There's no
You know what?
carve-outs?
By the way, Jason, I do want to correct you on something.
Yeah.
The term now is justice involved.
What is?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not a
yeah, It's not
criminal.
a criminal. It's a justice-involved individual.
Shut up.
Jason, look it up.
I don't care.
I'm being 100% serious.
You're going to be
I don't
canceled.
care.
You can't. You
I'll
can't.
be canceled then. I'm not saying justice.
I'm
involved.
being serious though.
I'm being serious.
You cannot call them a criminal. It's a justice-involved individual.
Well, you can. What I'll do is I'll say criminal, and then my mouth will go justice involved. If I know that a tenant committed a violent and burglarized someone and committed fraud, I can't be like, oh, I don't want to lease my apartment to you. The city says that I'll get sued. I'll get sued for discrimination if I don't lease out an apartment to a violent felon who's committed a violent crime or a fraud.
how
or
can you-
what about a sex offender?
Let's say that he lived in another apartment building and burglarized the other tenants and
For
committed
under
committed
$950.
fraud on the landlord and then beat up one of the other tenants. I cannot discriminate against those acts. I have to let him
Well,
lease my property.
what can you choose? If you put a listing out for rent and you get 15 applicants, how are you able to choose which one you rent?
Well, based on their job, I think just based on their employment and their credit score, maybe.
But what if you have 10 people that apply that all qualify?
Yeah, then you'll get sued. We have a case right now where a client had a bunch of applications, picked the best one, and there was another person that applied for the property in a protected class that was losing their job, and he literally stated that they will be unemployed in 60 days. And they didn't choose that person because of that.
So this person, they basically put out this listing. They got a bunch of applicants, and then they went with the most qualified individual.
Yeah, and now they're getting sued.
And now they're getting sued by someone.
In a protected class, yes. Even though that person said they were losing their job.
Now, isn't that just a money grab, though? I don't think it's an
95% of lawsuits are a money grab. No, I'd say 95%. Because they know it's usually suing a wealthy individual or landlord or company or whatever, and they know that that person is going to spend $50,000 to $75,000 in legal fees and a year and a half of their life defending it. And so the person thinks, oh, I can get a quick 20 or 30 grand. I mean, that's 90+% of lawsuits. That's a problem with how litigious we are, is that it's so easy to make a claim and it's so costly to defend it. So you just see, that's why I think 98% of cases are settled. It's basically legal extortion.
What could be done about this?
I mean, I think higher bars for lawsuits for sure. I mean, I'm not exactly sure, but you know what I think would probably be the easiest way to solve this? If you lose a case, if you bring a claim and you lose, you should be responsible for the other person's attorney's fees.
Yeah.
That law alone.
But they're going to say that low-income people who justifiably should have a lawsuit against someone and win, who don't have the resources to do that, might be less likely to file.
Okay, well then you can do it this way. You can still take a case on contingency if you don't have money, but that contingent lawyer, then has to be responsible, taking the risk. Not just the risk of his time and energy and money that he spends on the case, but also the risk of having to pay the other side's attorney's fees. Because the problem is this too, lawyers will take any case because they know that they can settle out for 20 or 30K.
And then,
so they should be, so I should, let's say you get sued, Graham, you should be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to settle for 20 grand because I'm 100% right here. I'm going to spend the $50,000 to defend this, and then you're going to have to pay me back. That lawyer should be responsible. So if that lawyer thinks that case is a case, he's not going to take it. Now a lawyer will take a case because he's like, oh, I can shake this wealthy guy down, and he'll settle for 30 or 40 grand. I know he's not going to go to trial. But if there's a risk of having to pay that other side's attorney's fees, then they wouldn't do it. Then lawyers would only take good cases because they don't want to take that risk of losing.
Do you think that's ever going to happen?
No, because I think that attorneys lobby so much to make sure that doesn't happen because they love all this litigiousness.
And what's going to be the result of that? Just no one buys real estate. People are afraid to put themselves out there.
It creates is it creates a disincentive for legitimate action. It's a economic disincentive, but you want people to be able to act freely in a capitalist manner, right? You don't want to create friction costs. That's a friction cost like insurance. Let's say insurance was 10 times higher than it should be. That's a friction cost. This is essentially an insurance policy. Because every time you do something, you're thinking, I could get shaken down, I could get sued, and I'd have to spend $100,000 to defend it. There are a lot of problems in California. I can't solve them all, but that is probably the way to solve how litigious we are.
Real quick, how many times have you actually panicked because you could not find your wallet? I'm talking full stop, heart drop, where it's complete panic, because I have way too many times, and now there's a wallet that just shows up in your Find My app. Me telling you that it's been a game changer is a complete understatement, because I cannot tell you how many times I've lost my wallet. But with MagBack, I just open Apple's Find My app to play a sound if it's nearby, or just see it on a map.
That's why we're so excited to partner with MagBack. Honestly, we've been waiting to talk about this because they make a smart wallet, and it's one of those products where once you see how it works, you'll just immediately want it.
It carries up to 9 cards while still looking sleek, plus they're made of genuine top-grain leather that gets softer and develops more character the more you carry it.
It also doubles as a phone stand, and it's compatible with QI wireless chargers, so you don't sacrifice your MagSafe capabilities.
In addition to wallets, MagBack offers minimalistic phone cases, multi-chargers, wireless chargers, Tesla chargers, and rim cases and key tags. Funny enough, one of my favorite products is the Tesla-compatible charger. I have it in my Tesla. I absolutely love it. If you have a Tesla, I highly recommend it.
And you can get 15% off of any of these products using the code iced15 when you go to creators.magback.com/the-iced-coffee-hour. The link is also down below in the description.
Once again, that is code iced15 for 15% off at creators.magback.com/iced-coffee-hour. Link down below in the description.